Hi everybody, welcome to Study Room, and today we are going to discuss Chapter 1, Resource and Development of your Geography textbook. My name is Snigdha Sharma and I am your Geography educator. Alright, let's get started with it. So now, first of all, we have to understand what is the meaning of resources here. Everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, can be termed as resources. So, resources, in simple words, it could be something useful to human existence or to the environment. So something useful, it should have utility, alright? So it could be termed as resources. They are valuable to human beings as they can be used to make our day-to-day lives more comfortable. Alright? Now we have this question here, brainstorming questions. What are some items that make your life more comfortable every day? From the morning itself, you would need a brush, a tap, or faucet. You also call wash basin. All these are things are resources. All right. Sometimes it is a plant resources because plant also gives you food. Plants, then it become trees. They give you fruits and all, crops and all. So these are all resources. Do you think that resources are free gifts of nature? Yes, sometimes it is. No, sometimes you make it by yourself. But everything comes back to nature only. So you can say that yes. Do we have an unlimited supply of resources at any given time? No, there is always scarcity of resources. And scarcity of resources often leads to economical problems that you might face in your life because not everybody has everything. All right, even Ambani would be lacking something, or you people can understand that you might want something, you want iPhone but you cannot have it because you have limited resources. So these all can come under this question. Now, interdependent relationship between nature, technology and institutions. How nature is linked with institution is linked with technology, and technology is related to nature. The process of transformation of things available in an environment involves an interactive relationship between nature, technology, and institutions. So, different institutions, with the help of technology, harness the things present in nature. Human beings interact with nature through technology and create institutions, all right, to accelerate their economic development. So with the help, by interacting with nature through technology, they create institutions, and with they solve out all their economic problems. Are resources free gifts of nature? Let's just think of it. We had it in our brainstorming sessions. They are not. All right, the answer was yes when we didn't know anything about resources, but now we know. So the answer has changed here. The answer is no. Resources are function of human activities. Human beings themselves are essential component of resources. So they transform material available in an environment into resources and use them. We have discussed this problem with this point earlier. And resources are not useful until human figures out a technology to extract the resources from its natural form and utilize in doing tasks of daily life. So they take resources present in nature, and through technology they create substances which help them solve their problem in the daily life. Thus it gives birth to your resource. So oil is not useful in its natural form, and it is difficult to extract from under the ground. But technology has made it possible. And technology is created by whom? God has not given birth to technology. Beings have given birth to technology. Inventions, and discoveries has happened. That has led to the transformation of human civilization. All right. So has made it, but technology has made it possible to extract, refine, and then use it in the machines developed by us to make our lives easier. All right. So oil is not useful. You can take the example of oil here. For answering the question, are resources free gifts of nature? Oil is not useful in its natural form, and it's difficult to extract from under the ground. But technology has made it possible to extract, refine, and then use it in the machines developed by us, but by whom? The human beings themselves. Alright? To make their lives easy here. Alright, we get it. So classification of resources, you can see here. Resources are something that has utility. Okay, with the help of technology, they help us to solve in economical problems. So there are two types. We can classify them as natural and human. Natural resources definitely would have biotic and abiotic components. Biotics are living things. Abiotics are non-living. So actually natural are further classified into renewable. Renewable are which can be renewed at some point. Non-renewable are cannot be renewed, but sometimes they are recyclable and sometimes they are non-recyclable. So let's just go with the example. Example, biotics your plants, animals. Abiotics would be your plastic. Alright. Non-renewable, recycle. There are so many things that could be recycled, like fossil fuel can also be recyclable, but for a very long period of time. They take over a very long period of time, fossil fuel and all. Then you have coal, ashes. Once used, ashes of coal and all, once used, they cannot be utilized ever again. All right. So like the things, so there are certain things which cannot be recyclable again. Now we have human beings. Human beings have structures and institutions. So various institutions they would be working in, all right, and they could form structures. Different structures would enable them to work, all right. Structures are what? And institutions are what? They would together form unions, or they would collectively work together, maybe, or medical organizations, alright, engineering organizations, civil services. They are all institutions and several human structures. Quantity and quality is also a significant classification, like how many people are over there and what is the quality. If quality of their workforce is also very important. If labor workforce is there, so their producers would be very less. All right, while there are a bunch of lawyers standing, their intellectual property is way too much than the laborers. So they carry their worth according to their work and the activity or the occupation they perform. All right. So the question over here is identify at least two resources from each of the categories mentioned in the previous slide. So we have already discussed the previous slide in a great detail. So we have done this question. Alright, so go through the video again if you want to have conceptual clarity. Otherwise, all the two resources from all the categories are done. Now we have classification of the resources on the basis of origin, how they started or originated. So on the basis of origin, how do you classify resources? First one is biotic resources. So they belong to biosphere, like living component of the earth, which would include human beings, flora, fauna, fisheries, livestock. Now you have abiotic resources. Abiotic resources are non-living resources. Alright. For example, water, wind, rocks and metals. So you get, all right, you get the examples from here also. Classification on the resources on the basis of exhaustibility. So we have understood about the origin, how do they started, and now we are understanding about how do they end. So on the basis of exhaustibility, resources are classified as renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Sometimes they get renewed, sometimes they don't get renewed. Renewable resources are which can be renewed or reproduced by physical, chemical or mechanical process, also known as replenishable resources. What is replenish? Replenish is when you renew something. So solar and wind energy, water, forest and wildfire, so they can be renewed. Non-renewable resources are mineral and fossil fuels. They cannot be renewed. These resources take millions of years in the formation. We have already discussed this. Some of the resources like metals are recyclable and some like fossil fuels cannot be recycled and get exhausted with their use. Alright? Now we are discussing how they are based, how the classification is done on the basis of their ownership. Who is the owner of those resources? So a resource may be classified as individual or community resources. As the name suggests, individual would be owned by privately by individuals like farmers may own land allotted to them by the government against the payment of revenues. In villages, there are people with land ownership and some are also landless. So you cannot count them as some kind of individual resources, but someone who owns a resource, that resource can be considered as individual resource. Now, urban people own so these are the just example. Urban people, what they do, plots, houses, other properties, plantation, pasture land, ponds, water and well, etc. Some of the example of resource owned by individuals. So there are some families which would have one well. So that can also be, and that is only for individual ownership. So that can be used accordingly. Now we have community owned resources. These are resources which are accessible to all the members of the community. Alright, so you can see even dog having fun at park. Why? Because it is a common resource, community owned. So village commons, public parks, picnic spots, playgrounds. So all are these examples of community owned resources. Now we have some other resources in this criteria only, that are national resources. So all the resources belong to the nation. The state has legal powers, means uh, the state is lawfully allowed to acquire private property for public good. So he can take over your land and will give you money in ransom so that it can build a highway over there or anything it wants. So you might have seen roads, canals, railways being constructed on field that were owned by individuals. So they initially that was owned by private people, but then the state took over it and gave some money and used it for national importance purposes. All right. So urban UDA, urban development authorities are empowered by the government to acquire land. All the minerals, water resources, forest, wildlife, land within the political boundaries, and you have to remember this. Oceanic area up to 12 nautical miles. All right. 22.2 kilometers from the coast termed as territorial water, and the resources therein belong to the nation. So territorial water is up to 12 nautical miles. Until then everything is of the government of the nation. Alright, now we have some international resources. So these are international institutions which regulate some resources. So it is of you can imagine it is an international property. So the oceanic resources have beyond 200 nautical miles. So everybody has 12 nautical miles to their territory. Then after 200 nautical miles, what would happen? That there is exclusive economic zone belongs to open ocean. Okay, anybody can come and live up there, and no individual country can utilize these without the concurrence of international institutions. So you have to seek permission for using it for private purposes. Now the question is, make a list of resources owned by your household. Easy peasy. You can write your brushes, cars, your house, yourself, and even yourself, because you are also a human resource. Did you know India has got the right to mine manganese nodules from the bed of the Indian Ocean, from that area which lies beyond the exclusive economic zones? So, because we have good trade relations and we had good reputation in the international arena, we got permission to mine manganese nodules, and we had sufficient technology as well. So, classification of resources on the basis of status of development, how developed they are. Alright, that is now we have to discuss. So, resources can be classified into potential resources, developed resources, and stocks and reserve. Potential resources, resources which are found in region but not have been utilized. So, you know that there is some resources but it is not being utilized right now. So, Rajasthan and Gujarat have enormous potential for development of wind and solar energy. So, you have a lot of dry air goes here and there in the Rajasthan and Gujarat areas, and you all know it, but it is a potential resources. In future you can use it, but they are not have been developed properly yet. So they are not properly installed. Now you have developed resources, so yeah, they are fully developed, right? Resources which are surveyed and their quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. The development of resource depends on technology and the level of their feasibility, how easy they can be extracted. So everything is going normal over here. You can, there are several processes involved in it, and these resources are being exploited regularly. So examples of developed resources are coal, natural gas, petroleum, water, iron and steel. Alright, you can see the constant utilization of them. Now it is stock. What is stock? Materials in the environment which have the potential to satisfy human needs, but human beings do not have the appropriate technology to access there. So these are included among stock. So they don't know how to harness it. Alright, so what is a compound of two gases? Hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen can be used as a source of energy, but we do not have advanced technical know-how. How do we use? We know H2O constitute hydrogen and oxygen. How hydrogen is very good for certain thing. It is a very good source of energy, but we cannot utilize it because we do not know the process. We do not have the technology. So it is a stock right now. Now we have reserves. Reserves are the subset of the stock. So even they are the part of stock itself. So which can be put into use with the help of existing technical know-how. But you in reserves you know how. How can you do it? But this has not been started. But you have not initiated it right now. So this can be used for meeting future requirements. River water can be used for generating hydroelectric power. Alright, so river water can be utilized in that way also. But presently it is being utilized only to a limited extent. It can develop in the near future, but right now we have no idea about it, like how to go about it. So thus the water in the dams, forests, etc. is a reserve which can be used in the future. We'll use it in the future. So identify at least two uses each of the above mentioned developed resources. Prepare a list of stock and reserves that you are familiar with. Two uses of the above mentioned developed resources. So we have also known water, iron and steel are the two uses, alright, of developed resources. Alright, now stock and reserves we have studied in a great detail. Alright, so we have a complete idea about it. You can take an example of, we were like river reserve, had an example of river wanting to have an hydroelectric setup. Right now river is not being used for hydroelectricity, which can be used in future. Stock, the great example for this is H2O. H2O contains high amount of hydrogen, but we don't know how. Know-how is not known of how to extract hydrogen. Alright. So here we came to the end of our first video of this chapter. We have discussed about different resources. their classification of resources. We have also classified them on basis of different things, maybe be it origin, be it exhaustibility, be it your ownership, and be it development. All right, I should not be writing here. Origin, exhaustibility, development, and ownership. So we have discussed it in great detail. We have discussed their examples as well. What I want you all is to go through the chapter again, revise each and every concept, and this is all you need to know about a resource and development chapter. We will be discussing more about this in the next video. We'll connect again in the next video. Till then, bye. Stay safe, stay care.